Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels trailer analysis video. This one's going to be for the brand new Season 3 trailer that just came out from Star Wars Celebration Europe. So yeah, as far as we're aware, this is kind of like a first half of Season 3 trailer. Like obviously for Season 2 we got kind of two big trailers, one right in the middle and one at the beginning. So it seems like it's going to go that way again. So yeah, gonna do some analysis of this trailer by using screenshots to point out some of the key moments. But before that, I'll just give you some of my overall thoughts on the trailer as a whole, and then get into the specifics. So overall, I really like the trailer. Pretty excited for Season 3 now. Didn't quite blow me away like some of the other trailers perhaps have. It's a little... it's obviously very specifically focused on like the reveal of like which characters are coming back, like look at these new character designs. I don't think it perhaps presents the story in the most kind of incredible way, because Rebels has, I think, struggled at times to keep the story on the forefront. It's kind of been distracted a lot, a couple of times, and it's tended to be only like a select few episodes that have like big moments happening. This seems a lot better in that it doesn't seem like there's going to be as many kind of random episodes, in that it seems like they're hitting a lot of big important points, like, okay, Mandalorian, Maul, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and stuff like that. There are still some, like, okay, we're going to get a Hondo episode, maybe they'll make that important, but we'll have to see what happens. But last thing I just want to mention briefly, a lot of kind of spiritual, mystical elements as well towards the end, so that could make things very interesting depending on where they go there. But yeah, let's get into specifics. We'll open up with the new character design. So this first shot I have here is basically just showing off a kind of closer up look at Ezra's new design. The most obvious thing is that he seems taller, more mature, and then visually his hair is different. It's gone from being kind of long, reasonably long, to now being kind of quite tightly cut. So that's a really interesting approach, in that like usually Star Wars has taken the road of going like, okay, when a character gets older, they tend to like grow their hair out a little bit. That's kind of what they did with Anakin. But this time around, like making Ezra's hair kind of tighter, in that it kind of highlights his kind of character progression, going from this kind of bit all over the place, you know, like kind of prankster character who's kind of very tricky, to being more of a kind of disciplined Jedi, almost overly serious now, the way they're presenting him in this trailer, in that he's kind of beginning to turn a bit, being influenced by the dark side. So it's very fitting of that kind of character change. Next up is Kanan. Obviously, he was injured at the end of last season, and now blinded, but able to see thanks to the Force. So of course they're going to cover up his eyes with this kind of blast shield type thing, which is pretty interesting, just that it's so big. It doesn't just, you know, cover his eyes or anything like that. It covers his eyes, covers his forehead, and it's a pretty big thing. I assume it's one of those situations where he just wants complete kind of coverage over his eye area, so he can just focus on using the Force to see. And then the other notable thing, apart from the outfit change, is a lot of facial hair going on there. Full beard, basically, and kind of mustache combo. So definitely a lot of time has passed. I wouldn't say a lot, but a decent amount of time has passed here that the character's designs make sense to change. Next up is Sabine, who's I think probably one of the redesigns I'm most impressed with, in that fundamentally they've just changed her hairstyle again, like for Season 2. But I feel like that they do some subtle stuff with her face and the way it looks, in addition to the hairstyle being similar but slightly different, that makes her look a lot more mature and older. And if they are indeed going to be giving her a pretty big important arc here, as this trailer seems to suggest, I think is much needed. So the hair obviously is like white with kind of purple tints, and then it's kind of slightly longer than kind of what you had last time round, so it kind of droops down a little bit more, but it's overall really nice. You get another look at Sabine's new design here, and kind of, I suppose, some of the new art on her armor, plus Zeb's subtle change in design. The most notable thing here seems to be that he doesn't have like any sort of sleeves or anything like that on his kind of uniform. He seems to be going kind of more for the kind of combat vest type thing, and the arms are fully bare, because I definitely don't remember ever kind of really seeing like Zeb's upper arms like that, and seeing the kind of patterns of the little bits the kind of patterns on his arms. So that's pretty interesting. Hera's one is much more subtle in that it's, if you don't really look too heavily, it's just that's exactly what she's worn before. But it seems like it's a more slightly high-tech kind of flight suit that she's kind of wearing here. Kind of subtly changed it up to make it like she's wearing just a new clothes. It's just new modern upgrade, nothing too crazy for her. So they're the main kind of new character designs. Next, what some of the new characters are wearing, or kind of items that they have. Sabine gets the Darksaber, which is very interesting in that, one, how does she get it? Because last time we saw this, Darth Maul had it. But Darth Maul was then defeated by Sidious. And the Darksaber seemed to go away. I'm aware there was a comic series that kind of covered some Dathomir stuff, but I really don't think the Darksaber was involved in that. So somehow it got back into the hands of like Mandalorians, and now she has it. So how exactly that story works is going to be interesting, if they even attempt to explain where it comes from, or will it just be a thing where she finds it and it's just like, hey, this used to be in the kind of Mandalorian, in the hands of Mandalorians. And obviously we learned a little bit about her heritage last time around, the clan Ren, and it's somewhat related to Vizsla, but not kind of anything seriously. So to some extent it makes sense that she would take it over, and especially with this trailer mentioning Fen Rao and him being very impressed that even though she's kind of on her own as part of the rebels, she's still kind of continuing the Mandalorian way. She still fights and kind of acts roughly like a Mandalorian, so he kind of is impressed with that. So her getting this as a weapon at some point, whether it be something that she keeps and continues to use, or if it's just a kind of one-off thing for this event and then it's kind of taken away from her, either way it's cool. I'd almost like her to keep it so she can, if they do reintroduce Inquisitors back into the series, that like she suddenly has a way to defend herself now more effectively, and that would be really cool. Speaking of lightsabers, Ezra's new lightsaber is a very notable thing here. His previous blue lightsaber with the blaster kind of enhancements was destroyed last time out. Now this time his lightsaber is green, and the hilt looks quite different. So interesting in that it highlights his kind of change in kind of style approach to being a Jedi, in that before it was very much the case where like I'm a Jedi in secret. I'm training in secret and I have to hide it, but I still need a weapon, so I'll have it be a lightsaber, but I'll also have it be a blaster. Here he seems to be going full in on it being a lightsaber. That's all it's there to do. It's probably really well made since he's a kind of skilled kind of mechanic and tinkering with stuff, but it's interesting his approach to just building a lightsaber on its own. Like, where did he get the green crystal from? I assume there's a potential flashback story, or at least kind of explanation once he uses it for the first time. The actual hilt design is kind of interesting in that it seems to be a kind of blend of a couple of styles we've seen before. This next shot kind of highlights the kind of the pommel at the end being similar to Obi-Wan's Episode 3 lightsaber. It's got a kind of grip in the middle like that, and then some of the kind of really thin elements of it make it seem like Obi-Wan's and Luke's Episode 6 lightsaber as well. So it seems to be just blending a lot of that stuff together. The most notable thing I think about it that's different than most is that the actual emitter is actually really small at the top where the actual blade ends up coming out. Usually that's a fairly like larger section, like even on Kanan's lightsaber you see it has like a little emitter shroud, whereas Ezra's blade just comes straight out the top, and like his handle's kind of quite far down from it. So it's just interesting, that he switched from blue to green, and obviously as we see in the trailer, he actually uses it to cut down stormtroopers now, whereas before they didn't really do that. So definitely a big character thing going on in the trailer. So they're the main weapon upgrades. Next, returning characters. So we have Cham Syndulla here. We see Numa's coming back. So that little group that we met last season is going to come back. Hera's family and the people she knows. And obviously the connection that we have from this trailer is that they're basically one of the first groups to meet and encounter Grand Admiral Thrawn. And obviously they return to warn our main rebel group that he's dangerous and out there. So that's a pretty cool use of them, and I'm looking forward to having them return. Next up, Fen Rao, who obviously last time we saw him was captured by the rebels and had basically agreed to be like, okay, I'll be your prisoner, but I'll also help you a bit. It was a weird situation the way they set that up, but he seems to be here as a kind of advisor to some extent to the rebellion. And they seem to be setting up this pretty big kind of Mandalorian plot with this idea that in the Mandalorian episode from last season, the kind of plot was that Fen Rao wanted to ally himself and his kind of group with the Empire, but the rebels stepped in and kind of captured him before that could like fully happen. So it seems like even without him, that still went ahead, and the result are these kind of Imperial Mandalorians who kind of have a blend of kind of Mandalorian and Stormtrooper armor, and it seems really cool that that's going to be the thing of like Sabine and potentially Fen Rao representing true Mandalorians versus the ones who have kind of betrayed what a true Mandalorian is and have joined the Empire. So that could be very interesting, especially how the Darksaber gets involved as well. Hondo Ohnaka is of course returning. How could we not have an episode every season with him? He's fun, but I don't think they've used him in the most serious way just yet. We also see him here with this guy whose name I completely forget, but we've seen him at least once or twice. He's he's got connections. He's implied to, I think, be relatively wealthy. So these two probably will give them some key pieces of advice at some point to get something. It seems to be potentially the arc where they go to find the squadron of Y-Wings to enhance their fleet, and these guys probably have the information to get there. Because I think Hondo mentions he knows something about a base in the trailer as well, so they go to that base and that's where they find the ships. Next thing is obviously this idea of these Imperial Academy recruits who are going to leave the Imperial Academy and join with the rebellion. We get this said to us through basically the rebels getting this source of information from within inside the Empire, which is basically this new Fulcrum-like character who's basically Callus. I don't think it's really much of a spoiler. I think it's very clear by the way the character said something. Even though the voice was modulated, it very much sounded like Callus's way of speaking, and it would make sense given where we left off with Callus not really feeling too happy about being part of the Empire. He would potentially side more with the Empire about these sort of things. If people really don't agree with the Empire, get them out. Yeah, we have here Wedge, and then the other two characters we don't know, but I'm still really confused about this female character here. Like, is that meant to be Sabine? Because the design looks identical to Sabine, apart from the hair color. Even the hairstyle is basically the same. Everything looks very similar with this, except just exactly like Sabine, except the actual hair color. But if Sabine can dye her hair so easily, she could easily dye her hair black for a mission. But it probably is a new character, and they're perhaps going to say that Sabine knows this character, or maybe it's some sort of a flashback where this is actually Sabine as part of the Imperial Academy. But I don't know. It's a really confusing thing just because of the design. In the comments, if you know if this is a new character or not, tell me in the comments. Or am I just crazy thinking that the two characters look alike? But either way, this as an origin story for Wedge is like really cool. That okay, he was actually part of the Imperials and left. I don't think I knew that initially. I think Biggs I knew. I think we knew he was kind of part of an Imperial Academy and then left. So interesting that's the same for Wedge. But again, I haven't really read much of the expanded universe for the original trilogy stuff. I'm more of a prequel expanded universe fan. But speaking of expanded universe, the big thing in this trailer is probably this, and that is the reveal that one of the key new characters that will be introduced in Season 3 of Rebels is going to be Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is basically the star of one of the first key expanded universe stories, all about him, the kind of Thrawn trilogy, I think it's called. Again, I haven't read it, not my kind of really area of the expanded universe that I really like. I think he was mentioned at some point in Outbound Flight, that book. Yeah, I think it was. Now that I remember, that book I did read, and oh yeah, Admiral Thrawn's brother. So yeah, I roughly know a little bit about him. So just check that up there. But yeah, interesting how they reveal him in that they slowly kind of and he's in the shadows, and you think he's wearing a kind of normal Imperial outfit, black, but then he steps into the light and it's like, oh, blue skin, white uniform, Grand Admiral, of course. Look at all those kind of different colored kind of badges he has to represent his rank, and the voice is amazing and what he talks about, and especially with what they're going for with this character, that he really investigates and researches the people he's after, in that he investigates their philosophy, their art, their views on things. And we see here that he has like a family picture of Hera and her family. Another one of Hera, we see he has the cadet photo for when Ezra infiltrated the Imperial Academy and he met Zare. Speaking of Zare, when is Zare coming back? I know he was involved in the some of the kind of mini books that have come out for Rebels, but he hasn't been back in the show for a long time. But still, this idea that he researches them enough so that he will know how they think and they can use that to counter them in battle, that seems really cool, and he could become an amazing kind of strategist in some key conflicts. Like, I can see some cool tactical battles between Commander Sato and this guy, but we'll have to wait and see how exactly they approach doing this character and re-canonizing him again. Darth Maul also returns, of course. He did survive the engagements towards the end of Season 2, and once again he's trying to manipulate Ezra. We see at one point he seems to try and use the Force on Hera, so he comes into contact with the Ghost crew very personally. He seems right there, and that obviously Kanan at some point in this trailer fights him, and we see that his mask is gone, he has his eyes open but they're kind of blank, so kind of weird situation there. And then there seems like there's a more peaceful spot at which Maul is just allowed onto the ship, and they're allowed to just link the Sith holocron and the Jedi holocron together, and it creates an explosion, which I assume this is going to be potentially one of the opening shots of the show, maybe, or it's something that happens. They encounter Maul, they talk to him more friendly like and allow him to do this. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to approach doing this, but for some reason they decide to combine the holocrons and do something. This is light and dark combining, creates an explosion, and it may link into the line of dialogue that Kanan has earlier on in the trailer, where he says something like that holocron nearly destroyed you. So that's an interesting idea, that like he thinks the holocron's the key to destroying the Sith, but it almost destroyed him, and has apparently changed his outlook, in that he's killing stormtroopers now and he's a bit more aggressive in fighting. But yeah, how exactly they approach doing Maul is going to be fairly interesting here, and that no real mention of Vader here, no mention of Ahsoka, so Maul has to be like our key kind of link to other stuff. Last few bits here. There's 3 shots of this that we get in the trailer. This Night Sisters like magic type situation here, where we see it's green, it's kind of spiritual force like. Absolutely, it's Night Sisters magic, but it's this kind of spirit that seems to possess Kanan, take over him, and potentially take the mask off him. And it possesses him, and then it seems like he comes out of this kind of magic's mist, able to somehow see because of this enhancement. And it may just that the glow eventually wears off and his just sight is back in a kind of weird way, which may explain the previous shot of him fighting Darth Maul without his mask on. But interesting how they're going to approach doing that, in that, like, is it going to be this thing like where he gets his sight back but in this kind of slightly evil way, where like it's kind of like tainted him or something like that? We're not exactly sure. It's because the whole, like, Mother Talzin, as far as we know, is dead, and the Night Sisters are effectively wiped out, but of course that kind of art of magics would still exist. But again, what exactly this is, we're not entirely sure, but they're still making Kanan very important here. They're emphasizing the sight aspect a lot more. And then even then, they seem to have this kind of solo arc planned out for Kanan as well, where he encounters this being called is it the Bendu or the Bindu? I couldn't really exactly make out what he was trying to say here, but it's this creature that kind of establishes himself as being kind of somewhere in the middle, a kind of neutral, like, Force user. Like, he's not light, he's not dark, he's not Jedi, not Sith. He's this neutral thing, the Bendu, he kind of says. And this thing seems to talk to Kanan about stuff. But before we leave this screenshot, you can see on Kanan's back there's this kind of like stick-like thing that seems to be a sword. There's one other shot in the trailer, I don't have a screenshot of it on me right now, but you can see him holding this kind of stick. It's almost like a shock stick or something like that he seems to have. So potentially Kanan might lose his lightsaber and be just left with a different type of weapon, and he ends up coming here to do something, but what exactly that is I'm not sure, because in the next shot you see the Bendu has kind of, his eyes look like they're blind as well, but he mentions that, you know, like once a secret is known, it can never be unknown again. So this idea of if you figure out a secret and it's not what you expected, you can't just like forget about it, it's there. And I suppose that's potentially saying something about the holocrons, that like if you combine them you can't uncombine them or something like that, that something bad will really happen. So what exactly they're doing here, very mysterious, and I do like that aspect of the trailer, of these two spiritual aspects being very mysterious while they're also presenting to us some more kind of clear-cut plots like the Mandalorian stuff, like Darth Maul, but again, we'll see where they go with that stuff. Last thing I want to mention, just these droids. I just think they're really cool designs. They're very different than what we usually get in Star Wars, so I just thought it was very notable, these new designs, and I really like them, so just thought I'd mention that. And then, yeah, finally coming this fall, so not too far to wait, only a couple of months away. I assume it's probably going to start late September, early October or something like that, so when the episodes do come out, as I've done for season 1 and 2, I will be reviewing them as they come out weekly and doing like discussion videos and stuff like that. So definitely keep an eye on my channel for other Star Wars Rebels content. If we get another trailer just prior to it airing, I'll discuss that as well, and so on. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say. I suppose last final general thoughts. I do think the one thing that this season is going to have to live up to is the fact that last season was kind of carried by the fact that we knew Vader Ahsoka was coming. That was something that we were all waiting for, and we knew the season was going to end on a high because of that, and it did. But now they seem to be basically saying that, okay, Ahsoka's out of the picture for now. Maybe they'll start talking about what's going on with Ahsoka. Is she really alive? Is she dead? Or what? Towards the second half of the season. Because as I said, I suspect we will get a second half of the season trailer once we hit that point. And this is only covering early season 3 stuff. And then Vader doesn't seem to be mentioned. You know, Palpatine doesn't really seem to be mentioned. So they're very much holding back a lot of stuff. And I just want the show, when it does come back, to really have a direction to where it wants to go. Not just take us off on these arcs here and there and lose track of an overall plot. If they're really going down this road of like this kind of Ezra separating himself from everyone by potentially falling to the dark side, really go for that and make that the overall plot. That's kind of what I want. A continuous plot throughout the entire season, as opposed to just the arc-based thing that's not overly connected. That's kind of making the show struggle a little bit. So yeah, final thing I'll just say is a link is in the description to this trailer if you want to see it on the official Star Wars YouTube channel, and then also a link to my Twitter account, my Tumblr account if you want to follow me. Then if you want to help support my channel so I can make better videos, more videos, you can become a patron on my Patreon page, or donate on PayPal to me. Both of those links are in the description below as well. But other than that, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.